So as you can see, we got most of our metal cut up for our flatbed for the Dodge. One of the things I'm doing different than what I had planned, I planned on using 3" by 3.5 pound channel. Where I buy my steel, they only had 4.1 pound channel, so the 3" 4.1. So it's heavier channel than what I wanted, and so for every 20-foot stick, it's about 10 pounds more. So it's adding around roughly around 25 pounds, 23 pounds more just in channel. Some other plans kind of changing a little bit, how the headache rack was kind of supposed to be. We'll see how everything turns out. I really can't do anything too much right now as far as mounting it on the truck and starting welding all the cross members. I need to use the truck tomorrow to haul some cattle in to the sale yard, and then we got to pick up a tractor that my dad purchased. So I got to have my truck ready for pulling those trailers, so I can't be doing this and then swapping out beds while I'm doing this. So tomorrow I'll be able to pull my bed off and start putting things together. So right now, since we're waiting on that, I have time to do a little more cutting and get things prepped. One of the things is I'm going to be using 1.5 inch by 3/16 thick flat bar for on my sides, my boarded sides. I'm going to be running a 1.5 inch piece of flat bar on top, and I'll lag bolt it down, and then these will be welded on top for strapping points. The purpose for that, since my truck is going to be around 80 inches wide, somewhere around there, but when I take these out, I'm going to be able to lay these down, bolt them in place, so I'm approximately 96 inches, so that way I can load up plenty of hives on the back of my truck. Sorry about the noise, the backhoe's running in the background, so it'll drive away for a while. But I'm a little bit leery about this because they're only 1.5 inches wide, and I don't have a strap in here. But one of the things that the straps do, so you got the hooks, right? So if you're just hooking down like this way, it's totally fine. But a lot of times we bring the strap in from the back, we pull it around, and we strap it this way. That way, if anything comes loose, your straps don't fall off because the weight of them is hanging down. But what it is, let me see if I can illustrate this a little better. So let's just assume this is your hook. So your hook comes over the top, but your strap is down here. So when you start tightening up on your strap, it starts pulling this up. When that pulls it up, it starts pulling your hook piece up. And I don't know if this is going to be quite wide enough. If it pushes too high, it'll come out. I've had some where the hooks aren't tight, they're a little more open, and what happens is they pop loose. Now usually they just hook this way if they do that, but that's not good. But I'm not going to go any wider, so we'll see if I have to maybe modify some straps, or if we're just going to have to hook from the bottom when we do that. If that's what it is, that's what it is. We're going to have to do it that way, because I'm not going to make these any wider due to the fact that my boards are only 1.5 inches wide, and I'm not going to go wider boards. There's no point in that. I just heated this up and bent this. I do not like how it turns out. I am going to actually cut them, and then I'll bend them and then weld them, so that way you got nice, straight, clean bends. And instead of if you do them straight, you have more of a tendency for them to want to slide over on you. Doing them angle like that will prevent it a little bit. It won't stop it if it wants to do it, but it'll help prevent it. Make it a little stronger that way, and you're not so tight and everything. Anyways, that's what I'm going to be doing there on the top. On the actual bed, I will use either 2 inch or 2.5 inch steel for the rub rails, and I'm not sure if I'll do these or do rub rails. I haven't really decided. This makes it a little bit lighter. I got to figure out the weight difference by doing this versus doing the rub rail. It's a little noisy. Got to decide on that rub rail what I want to do. Now the next part is I got all these pieces cut. So I'm going to have to cut these down and do some bends in it. And this is what they'll turn out to be. So these are going to be like little wings you bolt on to the side of your bed. So when you lay that board down, you actually got support under it. That way it'll be able to hold the weight. We're only, I think, was it 7.5 inches? I think is what I have it at. Let's see. Yep, 7 inches. So the board is 7.5 inches, so you won't catch that last half inch, which is no big deal. But what this will do is bolt onto the truck, 2 3/8 bolts. The board will lay down, and then we'll run, excuse me. So then we'll run 2 3/8 bolts up into your board. That just keeps your board down solid, rather than trying to, when you're pulling with the straps, it's gonna wanna pull up a little bit. That way it stays where you need it to stay. And then those bolts and everything keep it right where it needs to be, so when your weight does come down on it, you're actually getting support through here. I chose 1/8 inch. I think 1/8 inch will be thick enough. That's pretty strong. One thing I do with this, I don't have a good brake. I got a little tiny one I made for sheet metal, but nothing for 1/8 inch. And so what I have to do is when I stripe everything out, drill the holes, and then I take the skinny wheel or your cutoff wheel, and you go on your lines or wherever you need to go. I usually draw my line on one side and I run the skinny wheel on the other side. I do not run it right on that line, because that's where I want it to actually be. So you got to put your line either whatever side you need it to be on. So anyways, I go ahead and run the grinder down. You don't want to cut all the way through. You got to cut your corner out. So corner's got to come out where these bend together here. Run your lines in, and then you just go ahead. I just put on the vise, and you can bend it with your hands. You're not going to be able to bend it all the way. This wheel I have is the kerf on it is very thin. It's better to have the thicker ones for doing this, right? So if you get the cutoff wheels that are, I don't know, they're almost, some of them seem like they're almost an 1/8 inch thick. Maybe not quite that big, but they're a lot thicker. This one's real thin. But since this one's thin, I got to go ahead and run that line down, fold it, and when I fold it, those pieces of metal fill in that gap, and now it's tight again. You can force it, but you're going to bend things. So then you got to take your skinny wheel again, run it down to open that back up, and then you can fold it the rest of the way. Once you're folded all the way, you go ahead and you run some tacks down. Right here, I'm not afraid of that thing coming up. It's not going to happen that way. The forces aren't in that direction. So I'm just kind of putting some 1-inch welds in there. On this side though, I'm putting a full weld there. I want this piece and this piece to be pretty solid. And then I run this weld in here. That makes everything stiff, one nice solid piece. So there's no flex this way. And obviously, so like these, I mean, I don't even know if I can bend with my hands, but I don't think I can. If I do, it's just a tiny bit. But that's where you're gonna get your flex. But by putting this bend in here, you're taking away a lot of that flex. You could still have some here in the corner, but by welding there, that just makes everything a lot more sturdy that way. Really reinforces everything. So I have to make 12 of these. Oh, another thing too, I cut this at an angle. It's extra weight that's not doing anything. I mean, technically you could probably even cut a little more out of here, but I didn't want to make it it looks too wimpy that way. I think it's strong enough, but I don't like the way it looks. I thought about drilling some holes in there. That'd look kind of neat, I think, but too much work. This will work fine doing it this way. I probably should trim that off a little bit, but I probably won't. And once you're done with these, they should just kind of stack into each other. You have 6 on one side, 6 on the other, throw them in your toolboxes. Anyways, that's the plan there. The width of my bed. So without the rub rails, I'm going to be right at 80 inches. So that's about the width of my truck. With adding the rub rails or your little tie-off points, it's going to put me, see, 83 inches, 84 inches. So anything wider than 80 inches, you got to have your 3 lights on top, face that they can see forward, and then on the back of your truck, you need your 3 lights in the back. That indicates that your load is wider than 80 inches. And then at your furthest point, or as close to your furthest point as you can get it, they want some marker lights. So I'm going to be putting my 3 lights on top, and then on my boards themselves, so I'll have lights on my bed too, as far as how wide they are. But then on my boards themselves, up in the corners, I will have lights. So when you put them down, you got your furthest lights on your width. And I'll have plugs on those so that you can unplug it and take those boards off if you don't want to have no board, no sides or anything. But I'm hoping everything works out right. On my boards, you'll see when I get to it, but on my boards, I'm going to have bolts some all thread that go all the way through the boards, through the width of it, and they'll bolt it down to the bed. And I might even use a couple of these, maybe at least one in the front. And what that will do is that will keep my bolting that in place, the board bolted to here. That's not going to want to flex or move over. All your bolts are going to hold it down. And then the back, you'll have your backboard, and it'll be screwed to that, so it'll be solid. There won't be no play and movement, no bounce on it. Like sometimes people just slide them into their stake pockets and there's bounce on those, or they have them folded over a pin and they rattle. So that's one thing I want to avoid. I don't like extra rattles. There's already enough rattles on these vehicles. So these can be for a dual purpose, like saying if I need that extra support, even in the back, I can put them in the back and that support. But those bolts that are going to go through the width of the board, when you pull those out, you'll be able to lay your board down on the side and they'll screw into the bed, and then you'll come and put these in place. So that way everything's held tight. It's held tight not only down into your bed, but it's sucked into your bed also. One of the things I'm going to be doing on my boards, I like the idea of people they torch them. I like that look. I think I'm going to torch the boards, and then I'm going to put some motor oil on them to help seal them, help preserve them. I don't know if I want to use old oil and make them black. That does look kind of nice in a way, but if you want that burnt look, it's not going to help. I'm going to use probably just some clean, or not clean oil, some unused oil that has some dirt in it that we're not going to use on our engines. So I'll probably take that oil and use it. And I do want it to kind of darken up a little bit, so I might take a little bit of used oil, mix it together, and so that way kind of darken that wood a little bit and have that burnt look to it. Put it all together, I think it'll look real nice. I don't have any boxes to put on the side yet. Haven't decided what I want to do. I think the 36 inch boxes will fit in the front. I kind of like the idea of the bed's going to be black. I kind of like the idea of putting nice silver boxes on the side, aluminum, but I don't know. We'll see. Might just go ahead and put Might just go ahead and put the steel boxes on. Haven't decided exactly what I want to do. If I want that extra contrasting color or just solid color. But anyways, we're gonna get started on these, getting these cut and bent and put in place, not put in place, but getting made. So that way when we're starting work on the truck, I don't have to do this later. Now since I'm waiting, good opportunity to do this.